What's going on, guys? David Feldman-Makrias here, and I still didn't blur anything out. What's going on, everybody? David Feldman-Makrias here, and today what we're going to talk about is the stuff that I look at as soon as I log into Google Ads. Let's do it. So if you're looking at my screen, which you are, hopefully, or listening to the beautiful sound of my elegant voice, haha. But seriously, if you're looking at my screen, what you'll see is the overview inside of Google Ads. And, Google suggests that you use this more. And that's sort of the thing that Google points to right off the bat, but I really don't. I don't go here often. I look at the overview once in a while, like if I'm trying to send a quick report to a client, but I'm not necessarily looking at this very often, or in fact, the first thing that I log in. It is nice to have because you can like change the metrics here. You can make conversions, average CPC, or what have you, and look at different things. But I don't necessarily use this. I'm going to explain why in a second, but let me just kind of vet this out first. So if I were to use it more, how I would set it up is, like this. You're only allowed 4 different metrics, right? And well, first off, let me back up a second. Today is November 28th at the time of this recording. The absolute first thing I would do is I would change my date range. How I decipher my date range, my standard default go-to is month to date through yesterday versus previous month to date through yesterday, or previous month to date comparison. So this would be November 1st through the 27th versus October 1st through the 27th. The reason why I do this is because most of the clients I handle, they are monthly they have cyclical periods within months. So that's why I like to look at a month to date. But, it doesn't mean you couldn't look at a different one. That's just my standard default go-to. So if you don't really have a standard default go-to, then, you could use this one. Part of the reason I think monthly is important is because I bill monthly, right? Our clients are billed monthly, and that is kind of how the order of things are judged on. So I like to look how we're progressing in a month's period of time. Also, one thing to note, I know a lot of people that look at last 30 days versus the previous 30 days. I think it's okay, but it doesn't really correlate with how we're progressing in the monthly cycle. We have objectives to obtain every month. And that's one of the reasons I don't do that. Now, let's say if the date was November 8th, right? Or December 8th next month. The first 7 days, because I'd be looking at December 1 through December 7, won't really tell us a whole lot. So maybe in that instance, I might change my default date range to something different. But typically 2 weeks, at least minimum 2 weeks into the month, I will start to look at a month to date through yesterday. The reason I do month to date through yesterday is because yesterday is a complete day. Month to date through today, like a normal month to date, that gives me statistics and things like that for a day that's not completed yet. I still have sales going on. I still have clicks going on. I still have phone calls happening. I still have ads running. So that's why at least I like to look at one day before. Now you can make the argument attribution and conversion lag and all these different things, which is fine, but we're only talking about a standard default date range. So it's really important to define the date range, and we'll have more items on that as we move forward. All right, so now that we covered briefly about the date range, let's look at the main metrics. So if I have to pick 4 and I'm looking at a lead generation account, I'm not looking at an e-commerce account, meaning we're not selling things online per se, we're generating leads. What I'm going to look at is, first off, I'm going to look at cost. I always want to know what the cost is, especially for lead generation, because there are certain budget parameters that we need to fit into. I also want to make sure that the account is spending the way it's supposed to be. Usually, if there's any error within the account or an ad discrepancy or one of your major campaigns has fallen off, you're going to see it in the cost metric right away. And that's why I only typically like to have one of these lines on at a time, because guess what? When I put all these on, it's like my 3-year-old nephew just took all the coloring crayons and went like this over our dashboard. So that's why I like to look at one at a time. And I like to see if there's fluctuations or anything like that, because that's going to tell me something more immediate. Um, when I go here, I could see, okay, something happened, a big budget increase on the 13th, looks like to the 21st, more likely Black Friday sales related, so on and so forth. So I'll definitely have cost. Then I'd like conversions because that's the main thing that we're trying to get. We're trying to get people to convert. That could be signups, lead forms, chats, contacts, phone calls, whatever. We're trying to get that. So that's why I want to see what we're giving. What is the thing we're giving? We're giving cost every day. And then what are we getting? Those are the main things I want to see. And if you keep that philosophy, what we're giving and what we're getting, this immediate dashboard, that's the things you want to look at from a macro level, right? But still, as I move forward with this isn't the only things I look at, and I'll show you why. So, okay, we have conversions. So the next thing we get is phone calls. That's a separate item from conversions. I still actually don't know the difference between the reporting of an ad got a phone call and then an ad got a call from ad. Can someone explain that to me? Because a lot of the times I'll see campaigns that get a tremendous amount of call to ads as conversions, but then also a lot of phone calls. Well, what's the difference in terms of tracking? Like, did the phone call from ad actually, like, did they click the call extension? Or, did this phone call click the call extension? Or are they overlapping? I don't know the answer to that. If you can help find me the answer to that, that would be great. Okay, finally, from phone call, then we have cost per conversion. So it's basically what? It's a ratio of me looking at what am I giving to what am I getting. And I want to see how much I'm actually giving to get what I need. And that will help me determine if it's valuable or not. And literally, if you take those principles and apply it, you could be industry agnostic. But if you take those principles, you can apply it to whatever industry you want. I basically just said the same thing twice. You're welcome. Now, I don't use this screen that much. I really don't, because I want to know what the individual campaigns are doing, because all these different campaigns are fluctuating and attribution changes and conversion lag and what's the actual ROAS here and there and blah, 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 blah. But I guess if you weren't me and you're a little more high level, you could use the overview first. Now I'm going to take you into exactly what I do use. And that, my friends, is the campaign view. Okay, the campaign view. Let's look at the campaign view. And there's an extra bonus that actually is super important to look at for the campaign view. I'm going to explain why I look at the campaign view is my main priority. I'm going to show you some of the metrics and things that I look at as far as like a quick dissection of the data. And then I'm going to show you some really, really important filters that I apply to make sure I'm looking at an apples to apples comparison if I am indeed looking at a comparison. So what I'm looking at now is the campaign view. How I got here is I went to the gray layer. I call this the gray layer. Now this is different from the new design. Okay, so I am looking at campaign view in the gray layer, right? And in the gray layer, this is what it's showing me in all the different metrics. I did like to keep this campaign symbol open too, because I like to remember what campaign type I'm looking at as far as the campaign name. So in this account, there's a lot of performance max indicated by this little graph and the little star. And then there's a search campaign in here as well, and another one too. So what I usually look at is if I'm dissecting an account or I'm looking at an account, I have my columns set up a different way, but we're not going to get into columns. I just want to show you the view. I'll come in here, I'll look at the overall cost, and then again, I'll look at where my conversions are. And one thing I like to look at, which we can get more into in a later video, is actually a segment of conversions, because I have multiple types of conversions. I have phone calls, chats, texts, signups, all different things. So I want to look at how each one is pacing and dissecting. So when I'll do that is I'll come in here and I'll change my segment to conversion action. And that's going to break out, okay, out of this campaign, how many phone calls did we attribute? How many signups did we attribute? How many lead forms did we attribute? How many chats did we initiate? That kind of thing. And once we do that, that's going to tell me, okay, where are we at? Do we look like we're on pace from previous month or previous year, or whatever my date range is? I'm going to say previous month today through yesterday, as long as it's a significant amount of data. And that's how I tell, okay, what are we doing? So what I can see in this account, we have 253 conversions compared to 244. The budget, it shows the budget changed a lot. Holy cow, 17%. So that's going to tell me my cost per conversion went up a lot by 12%. So we didn't get that many more conversions month over month, but we spent more money. So that's like the immediate thing. Okay, cool. Where are we spending the most money? Well, if I take a look and desort by conversions, I could see where, the difference is. And this is how I start to find where the exact pinpoint is to optimize, change, whatever we need to pay attention to. So right here, 56 conversions to 82, that's a big difference. It's 26 conversions. So that's going to tell me, okay, I got to look into my search campaign. But I'm not going to just start looking into the search campaign. The account works together as a whole, especially with all the campaigns inside it. I'm just going to make a mental note. Okay, cool. I need to take a look at that. Now I have a performance max. We went from 54 from 30. Interestingly enough, these two have a very similar decrease and increase. So I wonder, knowing the account a little bit, is performance max dipping into the search network for these specific campaigns and keywords more than we anticipated? Maybe PMAX is picking it up. Could happen. So the next thing I would look at, get out of here. Next thing I would look at is cost. Okay, well, the search campaign, we spent 3% more, and the PMAX campaign, we spent 0% more. So I don't know yet. Maybe PMAX picked up these extra conversions, maybe not. Just a thing I'm keeping in my head for now. And then I'll go down the line and see where else we picked it up. It looks like we picked up a lot of conversions here, but then on this other search campaign, we lost a lot of conversions here. So PMAX, if you don't use PMAX the right way, it's just going to steal from whatever is best performing. So you have to make sure that your investment, especially in PMAX, is going to be correct, especially for lead generation. You can't really create a market, at least overnight. You can influence a market and create one over time, but PMAX isn't magic. It's just going to go after the lowest hanging fruit. But sometimes the lowest hanging fruit you're going to get anyways. So something to keep in mind. But that's what I look at essentially, and that's why I like to look at the campaign view, because it's not only going to tell me high-level metrics that we went over previously, like my overall cost, my conversions, and my cost per conversion, but then I'm going to be able to differentiate it out and delineate it out by campaign, and that'll give me a better understanding of what's going on. So that's the first thing I look at right away. I don't use the overview as much because I can get the same information if I just scroll to the bottom here. Like I could see that my cost, and they didn't have the overview tab when I was first learning Google Ads, so I'm just not accustomed to it. I would just come right in the campaign window and look at the overall filter and breakdown. So I could see we spent 14.6, and then I could see we generated this amount of conversions, and then I could see this was my cost per conversion. The columns are a little out of order for my taste, but it's okay. I didn't spend the time to optimize the columns in the right order for this specific account because this specific account is actually being phased out. So with that being said, that's why I come to the campaign view first. There's a neat little trick. There's a bunch of Google Ad keyboard shortcuts that are really useful, and I could make a subsequent video on that. They're pretty awesome. But I'm not going to go over that in this video, but you can know that the main keyboard shortcut that I use is GC. And literally all you have to do is hit the letter G and then C within like half a second. So bang, bang. And that's going to take you right to the campaign window. There's also GK, which will take you to the keywords. GA, take you to the ads. GJ will take you to the ad group. GT will take you to the search bar. There's a lot of different stuff. But one last thing before we go, one really important thing, especially when looking at year over year comparisons, not necessarily month over month, but year over year, I found that it was really helpful. What I was doing is I was looking at these filters, and I would always look at all enabled because I just wanted to see the campaigns that were running, right? But what I found was that didn't always show me everything. I don't like looking at all campaigns, and I don't like looking at enabled and paused because there's just too much clutter to go on. But what I found was when there was shifting from smart shopping to performance max, and they were just not, yeah, pretty much removing smart shopping campaigns and then creating performance max. I wanted to see how the performance max data was trending compared to the smart shopping campaign data, and it was very different. And these campaign statuses, this enabled one, wasn't working for my purposes anymore. So what I decided to do differently, and it seems like a really small tweak, but I think it's really important, is now I look at everything. I look at all campaigns, but I have cost greater than zero, which is essentially the same thing. It's only the campaigns that I really want to look at because they're spending money. And that way, if I change my date range to last year, I can see if we're running any campaigns that maybe I don't really remember offhand or what have you. And then I can see, oh, what's that campaign? How much did it spend? Did it start to increase or decrease in this time frame compared to this campaign? And I start asking all these freaking questions. Yeah. So filters, top tip. I recommend campaign view, cost greater than zero, all campaigns. Hopefully this helps. This is the preliminary steps of how I go in an account and diagnose things and see what's going on, see what's working. Let me know in the comments questions. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or concerns. And please like, comment, subscribe if you dare to do so. It helps the algorithm gods. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we'll be back next time. David Feldman-Makrias signing out.